All right, Bryce, thank you for being with us. I guess first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Grew up in Tulsa, went to Jinx. Basically played a ton of travel ball in Tulsa until I was about 10 or 12. And so I've, played all over the state of Oklahoma, went to Oklahoma State, and now we're here.
Tell us about your parents. What do they do?
My mom is a stay-at-home mom. She is in charge of myself and my brother and sister, and she took great care of us, myself absolutely included in that. My dad is kind of a jack of all trades. He is a lawyer, does a lot of commercial real estate, and I would say most importantly, he was kind of my he was in charge of getting me to and from baseball and football and everything. You know what I mean? And so we kind of have this dynamic of, well, we have sports with mom and dad, or we have sports with dad, and we have calm and cool and collected with mom. And so there's a little bit of, you get ready with dad and you cool down with mom. But they were both like super, super helpful in the upbringing and all of the baseball and football and sports in general. They were awesome.
So I got to put you right on the spot here with both of them. Where'd you get the athleticism from?
I want to say both. I'd like to say both. I think so. My dad played football when he was younger.
Okay.
And my mom was a softball player. And so I might have got a little bit of my baseball from mom and football from dad, and a little bit of, I'm sure a little bit came from dad in baseball too. But I'm going to give the credit to mom on that one.
Now, when it comes to your siblings, are you the oldest, the middle, or the youngest?
I am the oldest.
Okay.
I have a younger brother and a younger sister who both attend the University of Arkansas, and so they're in Fayetteville. My brother's about to graduate. My sister is going into her junior year or so they're about done in Fayetteville.
Tell us what type of kid were you? Were you obviously you were an athlete, but were you a quiet kid? Were you a bookworm? Were you a smart aleck? What were you?
I was always going. There was always an activity that needed to be done with me, and so obviously sports played a huge role in keeping me busy and active and whatever else. But I was also, my parents were huge on academics, so I was somewhat of maybe not a bookworm, but I went to Kumon and I did all of the math and reading and yada, yada, yada. So there was definitely emphasis on the academic side of things as well as the athletic side of things.
Well, speaking of athletics, when did you start to realize when it came to baseball that you had a little something different than maybe the other kids your age?
That's kind of tough. I think you always kind of know it to an extent where you either have this love that exceeds the love that you see around you for the game, or just kind of a general athleticism kind of gap. But I don't think that it takes long to kind of see that, especially in baseball.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, was it always pitching? I mean, were you an everyday player at some point?
Not at all. So growing up, I was a center fielder and a shortstop, and I caught a little bit, and it was basically any way that I could be in the game as much as possible was going to be the best for me. I just love the activeness of getting to do something every pitch, and so I committed when I committed to Oklahoma State. I was going as a shortstop. I wasn't even technically a pitcher then, and by my senior year or so in high school, pitching kind of started to come around, and that was kind of when we started to go, okay, there could be a little more of a future in this aspect of the game rather than maybe hitting and shortstop, which, don't get me wrong, I miss every day, but I think that we made the right decision.
Well, just stepping away from baseball for a second, you talked about football as well. How deep did you go into your football career?
I didn't. I played through my freshman year of high school, and then after that, I went to focus on baseball. But I played from the time that I was 8 until I was 16 or so. So I played a lot of football, and I was a quarterback. I guess I played defense too. I was like a quarterback and safety, but I was a pretty good quarterback. I like to toot my own horn about that. I'll show you my huddle highlights after this if you'd like.
I believe you.
Yeah, I send them out all the time. You might get them after the game or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I really enjoyed football. I think my dad, I don't know if he would still argue this, but he said at one point when I committed to Oklahoma State to play baseball, he believed I was better at football.
Wow.
At that time. And so who knows what could have happened, but I'm very happy. I've always loved baseball. Baseball's kind of been my first love since before I can remember. I mean, there's pictures of me dragging around the little Nerf bat at the beach and around the house and wherever. So I think baseball's kind of been it's always been my thing. But
well, baseball I know is big in Oklahoma. It's big a lot of places, but let's face it, football's probably bigger.
It is.
Was there any pressure by your coaches or by other people outside your family? Hey, you got to really stick with this football thing.
Not necessarily stick with it. I remember when I did commit to Oklahoma State, my high school football coaches kind of floated the idea of me quitting high school baseball.
Wow.
To come focus on high school football with them, make sure I got all my reps in the spring and all that stuff. And that just wasn't going to happen. And so that was kind of what made me decide, all right, I do need to just pick one and focus on one. And at that point, I had already kind of made my mind up and made my pick.
Well, let me ask you something about that, because I'm of the belief that the more sports a kid can play, the better for them, because you're working different parts of the body, but also you're constantly competing.
Absolutely.
And it's going to help you grow in whatever your best sport is.
Absolutely.
Why is it that some coaches want everyone to just stick with one thing?
I would say there's some benefits to specialization in that aspect, where, of course, if you can do it for a whole year, every year, that's a lot of time to put into your craft. But I think with youth athletes, kids, high school kids, there is a burnout.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was always nicer to go, well, we have baseball in the spring and football in the fall, and I wrestled in the winter and track in the winter. You know what I mean? It was just kind of nice to be able to bounce from one thing to the next. And like you said, athletically, it helps you a ton just because you're not doing the same thing over and over. You're kind of making your body do different things every day. And so I think that helps a ton in the long run, and I probably need to get back to some of that.
Yeah. So when it comes to baseball and growing up, who were your favorite? Well, let's start with this. Who was your favorite team?
Honestly, I don't know that so I'll say the Rangers.
Okay.
Because the Rangers are probably the closest team to Tulsa. And we didn't go watch a ton of Rangers games, but we did go down to Arlington occasionally. We played some tournaments in Arlington, and so we would get to go down as a team and go to baseball games. I hit in a home run derby at, I guess they call it like the Dr. Pepper field right outside of the Rangers
Frisco. Yeah.
It is. It's
yeah.
or I don't know that it's the Frisco Stadium, but it's like a youth kind of, it's almost a turf field kind of, you know what I mean? It's a smaller field, but I had a home run derby out there, and I actually won the home run derby, so I got to go out onto the Rangers field to get my trophy, and I was on the Jumbotron, and so that was kind of I would say my first memorable experience at like a major league ballpark, where I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, I'm down on the field, these guys are huge, there's me up on the big screen, you know what I mean? So that was kind of, that's probably why I say the Rangers. We had family friends that played for several different teams. I got to go, especially when I was younger, we would go to Drillers games in Tulsa, and they were the Rockies at that point. And so we had some friends coming in and playing in Tulsa that we got to see. And so I was probably more of a player guy than I was a team guy. But let's go with Rangers.
Okay. Well, speaking of players, who were your favorite players growing up? Who did you look up to?
That's a harder question.
Okay.
I actually don't know that I have the answer to that. So one of our family friends that came through Tulsa was Luke Scott, who played for the Orioles for a while and the Rays, and then he went overseas. And I would say that was kind of that was my introduction to a professional baseball. That was my first connection to a actual athlete at that point. And so I just thought he was and is the coolest guy in the world. And so he was in the minor leagues when I met him, and he was my favorite baseball player, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was really nobody that could top Luke. And then as I started to get older, I started to find kind of comps for myself rather than like, oh yeah, I just like watching him hit home runs. And so by the time I was in high school, I want to say like Carlos Correa was maybe my favorite infielder or shortstop or something at the time. And I'm a fan of like these younger guys that are they're only a few years older than me, but they're young in my mind. And so that was kind of like the new wave, the new gamer, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so this big power hitting shortstop was like the coolest thing ever to me. So I was a big Carlos Correa fan for 4 or 5 years.
It's so funny to hear you say it because I'm older than you, obviously. I'm older than a lot of people. But growing up, the shortstop position used to be a leadoff type guy and get on base and steal bases and not hit a ton of home runs. Now it's just as much of a power position. How much harder does it make it for you, a pitcher, knowing that pretty much everyone 1 to 9 can hit a home run?
It is definitely a different mentality going into the game, knowing that, like you said, everyone can hit a home run.
Right.
And so there's no more get-me-overs. There's no more like, well, let's just see if I can sneak this one down the middle, for strike one, because you got to be a little more tactical than that when there are shortstops and second basemen and whoever, guys that historically were average hitting players are now home run hitting players. So it definitely is different.
So coming out of high school, I remember reading the Washington Nationals wanted you.
Yes.
You decided to go to Oklahoma State. What was the reasoning behind that?
I had wanted to go to Oklahoma State my whole life. And so, like, whether that was football or baseball, just growing up being a Cowboy fan, that was kind of what I had my mind set on doing. It also kind of goes back to my parents were huge on the academics.
Yeah.
And so my parents really wanted me to go to college and get an education and get my degree, which maybe I was or wasn't so keen on, but I think it was absolutely the right move. Again, Oklahoma State, I just grew up being a Cowboys fan. It was an hour and a half away from home, and so that kind of made it easy to go, I'll go to Stillwater.
Well, being there and being in a competitive environment like the Big 12, what are some of the biggest memories you have in a Cowboy uniform? I remember them when they lost to Georgia in the national championship game. That's how far back I go. But just now, these days, in recent years, what are some of your happiest memories of being in Stillwater?
That's a good question, too. So I loved football game days in Stillwater.
Yeah.
That was a blast. And, like, homecoming in Stillwater was always the best. It seemed like we always played Texas that weekend.
Right.
And so, huge rivalry, not exactly like our rival, but Big 12, like in conference, it was a huge week. Homecoming, the fall in Stillwater is always super, super fun. Another really good memory in Stillwater, we got to open up O'Brate Stadium, which was super cool, being in historic Alley P Stadium, which was, the Coliseum of college baseball in the 80s and 90s, whenever it was built, to O'Brate Stadium, which was kind of the next state-of-the-art stadium put in. Both of those being in Stillwater, that was pretty cool to make that switch. Honestly, maybe O'Brate. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the O'Brate, because we got to have President Bush came out and threw out a first pitch. I mean, it was pretty crazy for
intense,
us, for us being in Stillwater. You know what I mean? It was fun. It was cool.
You're drafted by the Angels. Now, what did you know about the Angels, and were you surprised to hear from them on draft day?
I'm not sure that I knew a whole lot about the Angels at that point. Obviously, kind of at when you're in your junior season in college, there's a ton going on, but to an extent, it was like just focusing on the steps ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was very worried about making the postseason and how we were going to do and yada, yada, yada. And so when I did get drafted by the Angels, I'm not sure that I had any conversation with them prior to. And so, and I didn't get a call either.
Yeah.
I think I was driving home.
I've heard that a lot.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you? Yeah. So I was driving home, and we had obviously been watching the draft, and I hadn't really heard much, and so I wasn't expecting too much, and I was on the phone with somebody, and my phone started buzzing, and I kind of said, hang on, I think I might have just got drafted, and take my phone down, and sure enough, said I had been drafted by the Angels, and that was pretty much how I found out.
It's funny. You, Victor Medeiros, Roman Fansalker, these are all guys who came from Oklahoma State who've been picked up by the Angels. Have you guys just kind of shared stories about how you were drafted or how you were signed, and how funny it is that you all came from the same place? I know Victor was a little different.
Yeah, a little bit. We definitely have had like our laughing conversations about, can you believe that we all ended up here? But it was such a good group that it really didn't surprise you that much that several of us went to the same organization. Now, I didn't expect it to be that's kind of the lucky draw there, is you get drafted with a couple of your buddies.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't expecting that to happen to me. I always am like, oh, congratulations. You guys are all together. Well, that looks fun. And so this time it was me. And yeah, it was super cool. Maybe not a huge surprise, like I said, because it was a really, really good group. And we knew that going into the year, finishing the year out, like we knew we had the guys. And so to see it kind of all come together, like I think we had 8 or 9 guys drafted that year.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 of us together was, again, super cool. Maybe not the biggest surprise, but super cool.
How about that? Well, moving through your minor league career, I remember the first time I saw you. Late in the 23 season, I think you pitched a game against the Mississippi Braves, and I said, my goodness, this guy's pretty darn good. And then you get injured. Tell us about the injury, how it happened, where were you, and what everything around that.
So 23, that year was an awesome year, and I had been banged up the year prior. Coming out of college, I was a little banged up, and so I wasn't actually really sure what to expect with workload and all of it. You know what I mean? There's a lot more that goes into a professional season than a college season. And so it was really different to just be throwing as often as I was. And there's some ups and some downs. And I caught an up, and I kind of rode it up for about a month. And next thing I know, I had got called up. So that was August.
Right.
So I was tired.
Yeah.
It wasn't, August is kind of the grind of the minor league season.
Dog days.
100%. There's a reason why they call it the dog days. And so, again, I hadn't dealt with that before. And so at that point, as excited as I was to be promoted and be in Rocket City, it was just like, okay, I got to find a way to grind through this last month or however long it is. And, I don't know that an injury or my injury necessarily came from that. I mean, obviously, like, elbow injuries kind of build up over a long, pitchers are not, I shouldn't say fragile is the right word, but pitchers are overused. Our arms are overused. The throwing motion is not natural. And so there's just a ton of build up. And so I say all that to say I don't really know when the injury was or what, you know what I mean? I think a lot of it is just throwing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was super, super thankful to have got up here that year in 23. Had a pretty good off season in 24, and spring training rolled back around, and that was when my elbow kind of started barking again, and we got the imaging done, and we shut it down basically right before we all got sent out. So that was not ideal, kind of hard to watch everybody come out, and I knew that it was going to be a super fun year in 24 out here. So I had a little bit of FOMO. I was missing out a little bit, but it was all right.
Well, you have such a positive mentality. I mean, it just comes through so well. And I got to ask, how did that help you going through your rehab, knowing it was going to take a while before you could get back on the mound?
I think it absolutely helped a ton. I think really in rehab, I shouldn't say that I learned this in rehab, but I definitely implemented it in rehab, and it helped a ton, was just taking everything day by day, one day at a time. You know what I mean? Every day is a new day, and I'm thankful for each and every day that I get to do what I do. You know what I mean? Playing baseball is such a gift, and I thank God every day for the opportunity to do so. And I do that in the ups and downs, whether things are going good or whether I'm in Arizona rehabbing Tommy John. Like, I'm thankful to be doing what I'm doing. And so, like you said, I mean, you can radiate a little bit of positivity based off of that thought alone. It's just, I'm happy to be here.
Well, now that you are here and we're almost 2 months in the season, how do you feel about where you are right now in terms of your progress? And maybe the results on the field aren't where you want them to be, but how do you feel in your development?
Again, thankful really is kind of the main idea for me. You just never know. Baseball is such a weird game, and it's so impossible to predict freak injuries and stuff like that. And so for me to be here and be healthy and competing at a very high level with a really good group of guys is super special. Like, again, blessed, honored to be here. Like you said, the results maybe not what exactly we're going for right now, but I think that's part of it. I've always been pretty process-oriented. And so I try not to get too discouraged or too encouraged by the ups and downs. You know what I mean? I'd like to try to stay pretty even keel, and when it's going good, it's going good. And when it's not, I know that there's more opportunity ahead, and I just have to keep working.
Well, I appreciate your time. I just have a few more questions before I let you go. First and foremost, your favorite baseball memory?
My favorite baseball, like my personal favorite baseball memory? I don't know. I would say that's tough. I enjoy the clubhouse at all levels that I've been in professional baseball, and so I would say a lot of my favorite memories just come from team camaraderie, like sitting around hanging out. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the time I try not to even worry about results and stuff like that. It's just like, are we having a good time? And most of the time when we're having a good time, we're winning as well. And so I kind of take those two hand in hand.
You know what's funny? My favorite part is the bus rides. I know that I'm a
They're
weirdo.
a blast,
you know
aren't they?
why? Because you're around different people.
Right.
You get to meet them and get to know
They're
them.
a
Yeah, I
blast.
get it. The camaraderie.
Yeah.
Other than making the majors, what's the biggest goal you have for your baseball career? What do you want to accomplish?
Other than making the majors, I think as a baseball player, baseball has given me a platform to kind of not necessarily share my opinions on everything or I mean, you know how it is. Sports give you a platform to be who you are, and I think in my platform, my goal is to glorify God in all that I do, bring more people to Christ, and spread His love and message. I think that's kind of our goal as Christians, and I think each and every day I'm trying to take that role more into my personal life and baseball and whatever it is that I'm doing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Final question. One day you're going to have to walk off the field as a player.
Sure.
So with that said, when that's all said and done, what do you see yourself doing?
I don't know. I mean, I've got a lot of love for baseball. I could see myself, I don't know. I'd like to stay around baseball to an extent. I think my mind changes on that periodically. If you had asked me that in college, I would have said, I'm going to go get a job. And now that I've been around baseball for another couple years, I think the love for the game has grown. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I could do. I think it would be interesting to kind of use the network that you create in professional baseball and just kind of see what opportunities open up for you.